Appreciate everybody turning out to support SB24-159 to phase out and clean up oil and gas pollution in Colorado. We know that the oil and gas pollution is the #1 cause of both our severe ozone air quality problems, and it's also the #1 cause of the greenhouse gas emissions, leading to the climate crisis, which we're already feeling disproportionately here in Colorado. So really appreciate everybody taking the time to come today. Wanted to give a big shout out to our bill co-sponsors, Senators Sonia Jaquez Lewis and Kevin Priola. And also our representatives Andrew Basenecker and Julia Marvin. And I want to thank the 60 different endorsing organizations who are part of Climate Lobby Day today, and our record-breaking 180 participants in Climate Lobby Day today. This is a historically important bill to address this pollution. So I just thank everybody for being part of it. We know that future generations are counting on us, and it's the responsibility of this generation to take action. And we know that later is too late. We need to take action now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over right now to Ian Tafoya to do a land acknowledgement.
Woo!
The energy here is amazing today. Thank you everybody for doing the work. We want to start by talking about indigenous peoples who are still coexisting and fighting back against fossil fuel extraction. From Canada to South America, across the globe, in our own backyard, we've had communities who take action. People will talk a lot about land acknowledgements and what they mean. It's about action. And I have been inspired by the people who have put themselves on the line for Line 3, for Line 5, for all of the pipelines across the globe. A lot of people will say there are so many tribes that call Colorado home. Why? Because this is the headwater state. We have a responsibility to protect the water, and the water is showing us that climate change is happening. It is showing us with the shorter season. It is showing us with less snow. It is showing us with rising tides. And so I want us to be in our hearts thinking about the animals who also need us to get the climate under control, because their coexistence and their extinction are on the brink, and we know it. So the last thing I want to say is, many of the descendants of indigenous peoples of the Southwest then began on to learn Spanish because of colonization, right? There were Hispanic legislators who walked into this Capitol when this became a territory, the official territory, and they didn't get translation for years. There is still not translation in this building. So thank you to the planners for bringing interpretation here. That's the equity our communities deserve.
Good morning. Is it morning? I have a baby in my belly and my brain is all over the place. First of all, I'm Dr. Cherie Walker Ravenel. I am the Executive Director of Black Parents United Foundation and Brown Parents United Foundation. So I got this message from Michael last night, and I was just telling our team 2 days ago about the fracking that we have out in Aurora. It's disgusting. That's the word I've been using. My husband is 32, and I would have never thought up until Friday that I'll be in the hospital with my 32-year-old husband about the fracking wells. It is mind-blowing. One thing that I've been saying around SB159 is, if we don't think twice, we have to value human life. And that's one of the things that I stand on today. When I think about the wells and the oil and gas industry, again, my heart breaks for my daughter. When she was diagnosed with asthma when she was 4, and mind you, she was not born here. She was born in Mississippi, but she was raised here. I had no idea where I was living at, and I lived right where the fracking wells were when she was diagnosed with asthma. If you have not seen the impacts, just the backstory, I'm not an asthma patient. No one in my family has asthma. No one has any upper respiratory diseases. And my daughter at 3 had an asthma attack, and I had no idea she was having an asthma attack on the floor. So you can imagine a child grabbing your hand, like trying to gasp for air. And I took her to Children's Hospital. And one of the saddest things is that they said that she had RAD, which is it's like this respiratory airway disease. But they said, well, we can't diagnose your daughter because she's too young to be diagnosed with asthma. And I was shocked. And from that point, I was spending thousands and thousands of dollars on steroids every month for this child. She's 13 now and still have the same issues. What is pissing me off is that we moved a little bit further to Aurora and there is nowhere to hide. She's getting up at 4 o'clock this morning, running around the house. Mommy, I have a nosebleed. Mommy, I have a nosebleed. And I'm like, now I have to deal with her nosebleed, and my husband has the breathing issues, and now he has an inhaler. So these are things that are near and dear to me. And I would like to first thank everyone. I was just in a conversation with Senator Fields actually just now about, and a few of us were talking about 159. We need everyone's support. We need everyone's support. We need everyone's love. We need your sweat. We need your blood. We need your tears. We need to come together because we need to really focus on the unity impacts. Unless we come together as people, not as a black person, not as a brown person or an indigenous person or an Asian person, but as a person, a human being, to come together to understand that we are breathing the same air, we are going to the same hospitals, we're spending the same money, and we have to understand the importance of how much this is impacting our communities. We use the word disproportionately impact the community, but as another word for black folks, brown folks, Mexican folks, Chinese folks, Asian folks, Korean folks. And these are the names that I call specifically because these are the folks that are impacted dearly. So unless we understand the impacts and phase out the oil and gas industry, me personally, when I think about 2030, I'm really thankful for SB159, but that's 6 more years of me going to the hospital. Yeah. And I think about that 6 more years of me continuously trying to figure out if I even want to live here. And that's sad to say because we portray our state as this glamorous state when there are some really dark, dirty people here. And I think up until this time, we have continuously put blindfolds on our faces, but I am so thankful that we have folks that are in the center seat supporting and writing SB 159 for folks like me and for folks like my daughter. And one thing, before I leave here, I think about, unless we focus on the now, there is no future. Unless we focus on my baby, unless we focus on this baby, unless we focus on Giselle's baby, because she got a baby on her hip right now, there is no point of having this conversation because the kids are the main ones, are the ones that are going to lead this challenge once we're gone. So unless we focus on the now, there will be no future. And I always say, do not think twice. We have to value human life. Yeah. 159 is one of the things that I speak for. So with me concluding this, thank everyone for being here. Let's all support, and let's bring this continuously and speak and be in people's faces. And if we have to piss people off, we have to piss you off. And if I have to make you cry, I have to make you cry. If you have to make me cry, please make me cry, because unless we bring the emotion, because we have to know that these are real people. We're real people, real lives. We don't have a lot of money. We don't have billions of dollars to choose where we live. A lot of us have no choice. Rent is too expensive because we're getting gentrified everywhere. So when people are moving into these communities, we're moving and we're getting fracked. You know, Lucy's not here, but I think about how much more do I think about her daughter going through so much turmoil even before she got into high school, and I'm living the same life. And unless we can relate and understand what people are going through on a day-to-day basis, I don't want to have this conversation. So unless we think twice, value human life, and let's support SB 159 continuously. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for, it's just easier for me, the shortcut. Let's hear it again for our coalition members today. Let's hear it. United Coalition, we've got CCLC is here, we've got Sierra Club is here, we've got 350 is here. There's so many groups that are here, I can't name them all. I am Senator Sonia Hawkins Lewis, and I'm proud to be here today. I represent Longmont, Lafayette, and Erie, and this issue is very personal for me. In 2018, my spouse and I received a letter from Crestone Peak Oil and Gas. They were going to put 36 wellheads 500 feet from our kitchen. After we sat on the floor and held hands and cried, we realized that was it. That was it. We got up. We organized our neighbors. We organized our community. I ran for office, and we passed that historic legislation of Senate Bill 19-181 that finally put public health first. And that time led to now. Senate Bill 24-159. That bill does two things. It puts Colorado in line with the rest of the world. With COP28, we're phasing out the use of fossil fuels. It lays out a concrete plan to make sure that orphan wells that haven't been properly cleaned or closed will no longer pose a threat to our communities nearby. Now, we've just heard, and this is the case, the oil and gas industry is the #1 source of our severe air quality problem in Colorado. Enough is enough. The time is now. We have to protect our children's future. We have to leave something for future generations. Later is too late. Here's the interesting thing about our oil and gas production here in Colorado. We produce more of it than we use. We export 40% of the oil produced here. We export 75% of natural gas that we are producing. So what does that mean? That means Colorado gets the pollution while the corporations get the profit. We've already drilled 120,000 wells. 50,000 are in production. 50,000. These wells in production or approved will produce long past 2030, long past 2050, 2060. The oil and gas industry is one of the industries here in Colorado, but we know that fossil fuel demand is going down. There are now more jobs in sustainable green energy than there are oil and gas. In order to meet our clean energy goals, we know we can't keep drilling forever. We know that. We are on our way to 80% clean energy by 2030. Now let's talk about the cleanup part of the bill. We have to address the orphan well problem. Yes. This week, the Colorado Sun told us that in Adams County, 92% of orphan wells inspected in the last 2 years are out of compliance. The inspectors discovered 50 releases and leaks from these orphan wells. As a pharmacist, I see public health concerns of children and families living near these wells. They're developing asthma, as we heard. They're developing other respiratory disorders. And it's a higher rate. It's a higher rate than in other areas of the state. We know that additional oil and gas regulation will not kill this industry. Production is up in counties that have adopted stricter regulation than the state. There's one other piece we need to talk about. In Senate Bill 159, we are supporting the study that will develop policies and trainings and education programs to transition our oil and gas workers. Because we have a much needed sustainable energy workforce demands, we have to get more workers into sustainable energy jobs. In closing, because I got to bring up my incredible Senate co-prime, with the active oil and gas wells we have, we will have production for years and years to come. This is a land. This is an air. This is a water. This is a public health and safety issue.
Yes.
This bill is the necessary step to ensure that Colorado is truly committed to a clean, sustainable energy future.
Yes.
Y'all, please give a lot of love to Senator Kevin Priola.
Thank you, Senator Hawkins Lewis. This is a great turnout today. Thank you all for coming down here and being part of the process to get Senate Bill 159 passed. Make sure to go to Senator Roberts' office and the other folks on the Ag Committee, because we need you to have your voices heard on this legislation. So, Senator Kevin Priola, serving Senate District 13, born and raised in Adams County, grew up here in Colorado my entire life. One of the reasons I support this legislation is I have seen the changes firsthand in what's happening with our climate and what's happening with our air quality along the Front Range. I carry one of these. My grandfather taught me about a hanky, and I have to use it all the time because of how bad the air quality is here along the Front Range where I live. And the best proof positive that it wasn't my imagination was during the COVID pandemic, when we were all shut down and at home. Well, I used that time to run to Home Depot a number of times to get some honeydews done around the house. And when I looked west at the Rocky Mountains, I realized I had not seen them that clear since the early 1980s when I was a young boy in Adams County. That shows you how much oil and gas production, as well as all the additional folks driving and living in the Front Range, has changed and reduced our air quality. And that's part of what Senate Bill 159 as well as Senate Bill 165 is tasked in mitigating. Ending the expansion of oil and gas development is important for public health and environmental justice. Oil and gas pollution is known to cause premature death, heart and lung disease, neurological issues, gastrointestinal problems, and over half of all Coloradans live in areas exposed to pollution from oil and gas operations, including many communities disproportionately impacted by pollution. I own some property in the older part of Commerce City, and for years I would always see this like dust, like light dust, and I never thought much about it. I just thought it was, because all the trucks and traffic and stuff. But through being in the legislature and being educated and sitting on committees like the Ozone Interim Committee and others, I realized this was pollution coming from the Suncor factory, Suncor refinery just west of the property we own. These polluters are affecting folks who live in parts of our state, and they need to have their voices heard, and they deserve the same quality of life to breathe clean air that those who live in other parts of the state. And I'm here to fight for that with my co-prime sponsor, Senator Hawkins Lewis. Global investment in renewables is now greater than fossil fuels. Yes, we're already in the transition, and this bill plans ahead. We're looking forward to manage this transition. It gives certainty to industry workers and communities and plenty of time to plan. I just got off a Zoom call about 45 minutes ago with some folks from a utility that they were concerned. They're like, 40% of the electricity we sell goes to oil and gas production. And I pointed out that how this bill gives them certainty and gives them time to plan for other opportunities to transition their business, the oil and gas folks to transition their business to possibly sequestration, gives the utilities time to plan for diversifying their load. They pointed out that 20% of their capacity will be using batteries. And I asked them about who the batteries were provided, and I won't digress there, but I was pleasantly surprised, or pleasantly delighted, not surprised. The transition is real. I see it every day in my own life. I have 77 solar panels on my home. Our family, we compost everything, we recycle, and we own 2 EVs. I wish I owned more, but you know, I have young kids that I don't trust that they will necessarily bring them back in one piece, because they're more expensive than a used car. So, oil and gas expansion is the biggest cause of ozone and climate pollution in our state. Climate pollution from oil and gas wells in Colorado exacerbates climate change, which has been clearly the greatest global threat to public health by 200 medical journals, impacting the health and well-being of Coloradans in many ways, including extreme heat through droughts, flooding, wildfires, and such. I'm sure you all have seen in the paper what the fire in Texas. Just a week earlier, they had record high temperatures for February. It got up to 85 degrees in Texas in February. We are seeing the birth pains, if you will, of what climate change is causing. I'm an avid skier, having grown up here. I remember, as a youth, in the end of March, that's when the snow would soften up because spring skiing would start happening. Those conditions are now happening in many of the exact same ski areas I skied in the 80s and 90s. They're happening in February. I've also had a background in the ag business. I've talked to many farmers in my district through the years. You ask a farmer that has farmed for many years, and they will tell you the first frost in the fall comes about 2 weeks later than it used to, and the last frost in the winter comes about, or the last frost is about 2 weeks earlier than it used to be. So farmers themselves understand they have, in this region, they have 3 to 4 extra weeks to plant and grow crops, which is not common. It was not what our ancestors grew up, and it's directly related to excess CO2 being put into the atmosphere, as science shows. And that leads me to my last point of COP 28. The international community also believes that the climate challenge is real, and that in order to have a 50% chance of staying at 1.5 degrees Celsius, and what I like to inform some of my friends I discuss this issue with is, that's Celsius, that's not Fahrenheit. It's closer to 3 degrees Fahrenheit for folks who aren't easy at translating the degrees to Fahrenheit. To stay at that level, we need to transition away from fossil fuel development to have a 50% chance to stay there. So that is why I've joined this bill, and quite honestly, it's one of the main reasons I switched parties a number of years ago to fight for the state of Colorado, and looking forward to having the hearing and getting these bills through the process. And I just want to thank my co-prime sponsor, Senator Hawkes Lewis, for all our hard work and our collaboration. Thanks again. I will hand it off to Ian Thomas Tafoya. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to the sponsors who are the leaders we've been looking for. In the absence of leadership, people in this audience have come together to pass ballot issues at the local level, statewide. We faced intimidation, we've been followed, we've had slap suits, we've been arrested. 38 of us were arrested for singing less loud than we just chanted a few minutes ago. The thing about war is, and the oil and gas wars, is when you have a mindset about war, you're always in war. It's a war of attrition that sucks resources away from the solutions. My name's Ian Tafoya, and I am the leader in Green Latinos Colorado, and I also chair the state's Environmental Justice Task Force. An Environmental Justice Act, along with many other acts, that's meant on turning the page to a better future. We have our opportunity right here. We have our hearing. To all those outside of this, watching on TV, we have our hearing. We need your voice. You need to show up. You need to testify. There's no magic to this work, and we've learned it. You file the paperwork. You work as a team. You show up. You testify. We develop our dreams. That's what we're doing here. We are pointed in the right directions of history and facts. We have our supporters, and we're ready to do it. They will tell you that the sky is going to fall, but we are fracking from greed, not from need. We are causing harm to people across this state and across this country. The PUC has no POC. We are not in leadership in the decision making that could protect us. And so instead, we need a just transition. We need to put the best minds at the table to think. And that EJ task force I was on, they voted unanimous for just transition for oil and gas workers. If we give people the chance, they will look in their hearts and they will pick a new career. They will work with us to close the abandoned wells. We need no more explosions under people's houses. We need no more spills in our rivers. And we need to take a stand right here on this historic day, and so we hope that you join us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashad Younger. I'm the second vice president for the state conference NAACP. I'm a second generation native of Colorado. And I want to ask the crowd a question. How many of you guys know someone that has cancer? Whoa. How many of you know someone that has cardiovascular disease? How many of you know someone that has asthma or a lung-related disease? How many of you know someone that has allergies? That is the problem. That's the reason why we're supporting Senate Bill 159, right? Because the issue is, it shouldn't be profit. We're all connected, right? We're all connected to the earth. If you look at the earth, it's just like our body. There's systems, right? We have our rivers, we have our plants, we have all those things that we need. And everything that is going on right now in regards to pollution is affecting our earth. Just like we heard, climate change. We're losing our waters because climate is constantly increasing in temperature. We're having the effects of our food being contaminated. Because just like that water evaporates, it has to go somewhere. It goes in the sky. And it collects that pollution that comes from these CO2. And then it goes to our groundwater. It also goes to our food that is receiving that rainwater. And we're digesting that in our bodies. We're taking those chemicals into our bodies. And so the thing I want to say is, I understand business. I own my own business. But we can't put business over human rights and our environment. We have to make sure. We have to make sure that we protect our planet. I always tell people in regards to my work with NAACP, I have a young 9-year-old. And I want to be able to make sure that when she's older, she says, you know what? My dad, he worked hard to be able to leave this earth, this world, better than what he found it. And it takes all of us. And it even takes those with the corporations. You have to understand, you have to live on this earth too. It's not all about profits. No. Especially if you can't live to be able to see the profits. So we got to make a change. So I'm thankful for our legislators for supporting this bill. We all have to come together and continue to fight and put pressure on them to be able to make sure that we do protect our world, our earth, our environment, our home, as well as our legacy. But not only just our legacy, the people that are still walking with us, our elders, and us that walk upon this earth. The time is now. It cannot be later. Later is too late. So please, 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 even the corporations, consider what you're doing to us, to everyone that has to live on this earth. Stop it. Like I said, the time is now. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm not myself right now. I'm Natasha Leger from the Western Slope. We have many partners from many areas of the state. I'd just like to show a list of some of our sponsors, partners for this bill, and many of them can't be here today. There are conferences happening, and many of them live in areas of the state where they cannot travel here. So I'm here to read a statement from Natasha Leger. I'm sorry I could not be with you today. I am Natasha Leger, Executive Director for Citizens for a Healthy Community, based in Paonia on the Western Slope. CHC is a nonprofit, impacted community group dedicated to protecting the air, water, and food sheds of the North Fork Valley from the impacts of oil and gas development. We are the voice of multi-generational farmers, ranchers, businesses, hikers, hunters, and anglers. We are parents, grandparents, and youth. We are the voice of impacted and concerned citizens. We are the voice of the Western Slope. If you eat local organic food and shop at farmers markets, you've likely purchased apples, peaches, vegetables, pasture-raised beef and chicken, and don't forget the wine, cider, and cheese from farmers, vintners, and orchardists in the North Fork Valley. What you may not know is that it's getting exponentially harder to bring the best tasting and highest quality food to market. We are suffering from extreme heat and cold, voracious pests, early runoff when crops aren't ready, parched soils from drought, and even road collapses, all due to our changing climate. If you love to hike, bike, camp, hunt, and fish on our public lands, you already know that these wonderful lands are suffering and drying up. If you value water, then you must know that the majority of Colorado's water supply comes from the Western Slope, and it is shrinking fast. Across the state, residential neighborhoods in the path of oil and gas plays have turned into industrial zones. And if they weren't disproportionately impacted before, they are now. The connection between oil and gas development and our changing climate is irrefutable. The connection between pollutants from oil and gas production and adverse impacts is undeniable. The connection between residential drilling and disproportionately impacted communities is evident. We need sound, pragmatic action. Now is the time to plan for transition. Now is the time to phase out new oil and gas permits. Now is the time to ensure that operators absorb the total cost of their operations and not shift them to taxpayers as is happening with abandoned oil and gas wells. Now is the time for courageous leadership. Now is the time to support SB159 to phase out the permitting of new oil and gas development and clean up existing operations. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Isabel Aries, and I represent over 700 ski patrollers and lift mechanics across the Mountain West and 7 ski resorts here in Colorado, including Breckenridge, Steamboat, Loveland, and by the end of the season, Eldora and Keystone. I'm an organizer with CWA 7781, which includes the United Professional Ski Patrols of America. Ski patrollers aren't just people who get to, ski around all day, and if they're paid in powder, they certainly aren't paid enough. They're highly skilled first responders, they're avalanche technicians, they're snow scientists, and they are on the front lines of the climate crisis in Colorado. The president of the Purgatory Professional Ski Patrol told me last May that when she started skiing years ago, many of the patrollers there had spent almost their whole lives on the mountains. They had 30 or 40 plus years or more on patrol. But now, she told me that ski patrollers at Purgatory starting out don't have 30 years left of snow. 30 years. I was at Loveland yesterday, just with the president of the local, and you could see grass at the base of some of the lift towers in February. My fellow organizer, Ryan Deneen, is a 15-year patroller at the Breckenridge Ski Patrol, and he's an avalanche technician, which means that he evaluates the snowpack for avalanche conditions and he deploys explosives to mitigate them and make skiing safer for Breckenridge guests. He told me that the snow itself is changing, which makes it harder to predict and address avalanche conditions, and that as a result, avalanches are getting harder to predict and to mitigate, and that makes skiing less safe, both for visitors and patrollers. It's clear to any ski patroller that you could ask that climate change isn't just a far-off threat to their careers. It's present and already impacting how they do their jobs and how long they'll be able to do them. Tourism is one of the largest industries in Colorado, largely thanks to our world-class ski areas, and those can only operate because of our world-class ski patrols. The general narrative is that a green transition and oil and gas regulations will harm union workers, but our ski patrollers show that if we want to protect union workers and union jobs in the state of Colorado, we need to protect the environment. CWA 7781 supports the passage of SB159, and we encourage all legislators, especially those representing ski patrollers and ski resorts, to vote in its favor.
Thank you so much to our bill sponsors and to our coalition partners for bringing us to this day. My name is Moshe Kornfeld, and I'm the Executive Director of Colorado Jewish Climate Action. A key theme in my tradition is Lador Vador, from generation to generation. We have a responsibility to ensure a just and livable world for our children and grandchildren. When our air is too polluted to breathe, when our water is too contaminated to drink, when our soil can't grow food, and the climate too unstable to sustain life, what will we tell our children? We did it for the money? We couldn't find the courage to take the actions we knew were necessary? The time for bold climate action is now. The Torah teaches justice, justice you shall pursue. We must pursue a world in which families don't need to choose between a good-paying job at the cost of exposure to fracking chemicals that are linked to cancer, as well as gastrointestinal, circulatory, respiratory, developmental, and neurological disorders. We must pursue a clean energy future that does away with the sacrifice zones upon which the fossil fuel economy is dependent. We have a sacred obligation to steward creation, to care for our beautiful, life-sustaining planet. Our water, soil, and air can't serve as dumping grounds for polluters who profit while leaving us to take care of the cleanup. This bill eliminates the legal loopholes that allows polluters to cause harm while leaving us with a check. Jewish wisdom teaches, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, who am I? And if not now, then when? If not now, when? Later is too late. Now, too late. Now is the time for bold action at the scale that science and justice demand. The science is clear. We must stop extracting and burning fossil fuels. The demands of justice are also clear. We need to stop polluting our air, water, and soil, especially in disproportionately impacted communities, and we need to hold polluters accountable. If not now, when? Later is too late. It is time to act now for us, and it is time to act now, Lador Vador, for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. My name is Jan Rose, and I'm the legislative analyst for the Colorado Coalition for a Livable Climate. Most of the partner organizations sponsoring SB24-159 are members of the CCLC, and I am here today to represent one of those member orgs who could not be here, Wild Earth Guardians. Wild Earth Guardians is normally in the civil litigation realm, suing polluters on behalf of the people of Colorado, on behalf of our land, our air, and our water. And they are seeing such constant abuses, primarily financial abuses, on the part of industry sloughing off their decrepit assets onto companies they know will go bankrupt and stick the taxpayers of Colorado with the bill. And the time to put people over profits is right now. So this bill has 3 important provisions to make them spend the $40 million they spend on TV, telling us how clean and safe they are. This time they're going to spend it on cleaning up their act and making their act safer. And we're going to do that 3 ways. We're going to make sure that anybody who's profited off a well pays to clean the mess up it leaves behind. We had nearly 1,200 spills in Colorado last year, just last year. 60% of them were historical, meaning caused by a prior owner. They can't skate away from that contamination anymore. We will hold them responsible. Finally, we are moving towards the future of energy in this state, and that's employing emerging technologies. And emerging technologies has lots of fingers in the pie. We don't want no finger pointing. We will hold you all accountable when you put a carbon bomb under the kitchen of my mom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. And I am myself now. I'm Heidi Leithwood. I'm Climate Policy Analyst with 350 Colorado, and we are one of the co-champions of this bill. We've been waiting a long time for this bill. And today, we're here for our brave sponsors. We're here to support them and to inspire this same bravery from all of their colleagues on the Hill. Come on, people. What this bill aims to do is not extreme, but the fossil fuel industry spends billions to try to make people in our country think that it is. Jan Rose spoke about the liability reform provisions, and I'll speak about the other half of the bill. SB159 requires a phase-out of new oil and gas permits by 2030. It requires prioritizing permit reductions in disproportionately impacted communities. And it ensures operators can't stockpile permits and then continue drilling for decades. Phasing out new oil and gas development has been called for by the United Nations and by the International Energy Agency. 8 countries have already put an end to new oil and gas development, including the second largest producer in the EU, Denmark. And Denmark has even set an end for production, and so have some other countries. This is not radical. This is strong and responsible political leadership that manages a transition that's already underway. Oil and gas operations in our state, as we've been hearing today, are the #1 cause of dangerous ground-level ozone and carbon pollution. So phasing out new permits will also phase out the drilling and fracking that's polluting our air and communities. But we're under no illusion that passing this bill will be easy. We all know there are powerful forces fighting for the business as usual that's driving us off the cliff. This is going to require courage and continued determination from our lawmakers and from all of us. This is the fight of our lives. Colorado is bold and brave. We will not give up until we lead the nation by passing this essential policy solution. Thank you.
All right, I'm Micah Parkin with 350 Colorado. I want to say thanks again so much to everybody who came out today to support this historic bill, SB24-159, to phase out and clean up oil and gas pollution. Let me hear y'all say, repeat after me, phase out and clean up. Phase out and clean up. Oil and gas pollution. Oil and gas pollution. Phase out and clean up. Oil and gas pollution. Later is too late. Later is too late. One more time. Later is too late. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to say thank you one more time to all of the endorsers, all the groups who have endorsed this historic bill, to the incredible sponsors who've been brave enough to support this bill, and all of the groups, 350 Colorado, Wild Earth Guardians, Green Latinos, Aspen One, Black Parents United Foundation, Citizens for a Healthy Community, Clean Energy Action, Colorado Jewish Climate Action, Colorado Rising, Communication Workers of America Union, Empower Our Future, Erie Protectors, Green Faith, Indivisible Colorado, Mothers Out Front, NAACP Rocky Mountain, Sierra Club, Safe and Healthy Colorado, Save the Aurora Reservoir, Third Act Union, Together Colorado, Women from the Mountain, Physicians for Social Responsibility, and Colorado Coalition for a Livable Climate, which has 49 member organizations. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you so much. And I wanted to say thanks to the press for being here. We will have all the group representatives and people who spoke are going to go outside to the west steps out here and can speak with you then. And we're also, for everybody who can stick around, who can accompany us, this bill will go first on March 14th to the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. That's chaired by Senator Dylan Roberts of District 8, which is where many of our ski resorts are. And we heard already from Isabel Aries from CWA about the impacts to the ski industry and to his district, and the water shortages and the impacts on that very important economic sector of our state. So we're going to go up to his office and we're going to deliver a letter all together. One letter from Aspen One, which is on behalf of the ski community that's being so direly impacted by the climate crisis, and another letter on behalf of the 500 plus different constituents in his district, urging him to support this important bill when it comes to his district. So if you will, if you're not one of the group reps who's going to talk to press, please come with us up to his office. And then we have lunch for everybody who can stick around right out here on the west step. So join us for a picnic out there. Thank you again, everybody.